I've been formulating my own theories about the carnival. And in Trinidad, there's this big debate as to whether it is an African thing, or whether it's a Trinidad thing, or whether the East Indians have any impact on it, or even the European influence, And my personal take on it, it's a combination of all of those. As Minshall would say in any interview, he put it is that, you have this phenomenon which takes place in this little island where people were brought from all around the world, literally. Because early in my career, I didn't even know that it was African. My belief is that it was a European. I just thought it was this festival that took place before Ash Wednesday. And so you have to be of a certain religious persuasion to even know what Ash Wednesday means. So if you're talking to somebody who doesn't know what Ash Wednesday means, I say it's it's this big celebration which takes place before those 2 days. It doesn't matter. I think the French influence and the Spanish influence have been the two significant things in shaping the carnival in the Caribbean. Because all you have to do is look at certain places like Jamaica, it's part of the Caribbean, or you look at places like Guyana, which have no carnival, so to speak. They may have, Mashramani or whatever it's called, or Jamaica may have something else, but nobody has this kind of a carnival which is rooted in the European type of thing. So I felt that was the only source of that. But I was fortunate to go to Africa for a film festival about 15 years ago. Went to a place called Ouagadougou, and I saw people beating on, the origins of the xylophone, but the actions that they were doing were just like how we beat the steel band in Trinidad, Then I saw mokojumbis or stilts, and I realized all these things came from Africa. And then I've seen documentaries where some of the actual costumes straight from Africa. So I have a completely different, it's a hybrid event. It's rooted in a religious ceremony in the sense that it happens in certain countries Monday and Tuesday preceding Ash Wednesday, which is a religious kind of a significance. But then the carnival now has morphed into a tourist attraction. So you have carnival in Grenada, in Barbados, it's crop over, in Dominican Republic is something else. And they're all at different times. But
Bahamas is
John Canoe. But, so it's, its root is that big kind of thing when people were set free. It's just like the walk for freedom, the Aboriginals. I went and I participated in that walk on Sunday, right? If you have things that are welling up in you, you need a place to let out steam, so to speak. And the carnival was a place to let out steam. But in addition to that, it was places to play or stick fighting, to become Jab Malassi, and to do a whole bunch of things which are unique to Trinidad. But I can, I can put all those things in perspective and understand that right now. Well, what have happened back then is that if you go back to Trinidad before slavery was abolished, right? The freed people, the slave owners, participated in carnival, and so they would have their celebrations. The slaves would be in the background watching, right? So they dressed up in all the elaborate costumes and all that sort of a thing because that's what they knew coming from Europe. So this was embedded in the slaves. Yes, go ahead. Oh, sorry. This was embedded in the slaves, right? But the slaves now saw the carnival as a means to kind of get their propaganda going. So they started singing the calypsos. But in the calypsos, they would be saying derogatory things about the owners or protest, or they will be planning some kind of escape, right? Now, they had nothing. They couldn't buy any of those expensive costumes, right? But they could pour molasses over themselves and create the character called Jab Malassi, right? Molasses devil, right? So that's how they started. But eventually, when slavery was abolished, one of the things they started doing is started imitating or mimicking or dressing up like some of those characters. So the carnival went, I would say the costume went in two directions. The people who would aspire to be up in the upper class, or the people who would just be, you know, the grassroots people there, you know. And the other thing that I noticed also that is very, very African is this idea of cutting branches of trees and parading with them. That is something that is still very common when you see any political demonstration in certain African countries. But in the early days of Trinidad Carnival, J'ouvert, you'd see people with these branches. Things like stick fighting. Stick fighting came from a certain place in Africa, and it's a very, very violent bois. It went to Brazil, and they've made it into this capoeira type of a dance, you know. But it's a very basic form of warfare, right? That came from Africa. Now, stick fighting was banned in Trinidad since the late 50s. It's too violent. I went to Trinidad in the 90s with a camera crew, and we went down to Mayaro, and it was incredible. Well, I think there always is the politics, and let's deal with Caribana, okay? Let's deal with Caribana. If you have to put Caribana in a sort of a political type of a situation, right? In the early days, it was just, you know, let's give the blacks a place where they could amuse themselves, right? Just in terms of the street, I was just reading an article of that, right? I think it was on Young Street, then it went to University, and then is now on the what they call the Lakeshore Boulevard. And the person who wrote the article said they loved this, but they had preferred the Young Street. But then Young Street, it was taken too long. As you said, is the difference between getting the street for, say, 4 hours versus taking it over for the entire day. Right? As somebody said, there are other activities where they would shut down the street for the day and nobody complains. But if it's people jumping up, black people jumping up on the street, that creates a problem. But the parade now has evolved where it has become the most, in terms of the economic impact in Toronto, it's the single biggest influx of revenue for the city of Toronto in terms of hotel rooms and so on and so on. All of that was coming in, and the businessmen were giving nothing back to the community when they were asking for anything. So that is a situation of politics, because any other event that any other community that was putting on a festival that was so highly regarded, right? The people would have been running out to give them their sponsorship and so on. So Caribana is always fighting that uphill battle. Then the government stepped in. Scotiabank got in. Scotiabank wanted them to change the name. It was called Scotiabank Caribbean Carnival or something like that. That's all politics, right? Because Caribana was associated with where guys would come up with their guns, shoot people in the street and that sort of a thing. Even though people may shoot other people outside of Caribana, the media will sort of kind of say, well, don't go to Caribana, it's too dangerous and that sort of thing. Now, I think all of that has played itself out, and then it has settled down into a big thing, which is now a very successful carnival event. And I think you could just use what has happened